Rachel. How are you?
I'm okay. It's a loaded question, but how are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. Well, I'm okay as far as okay stands. It's been a long day. It's been a long year, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The life keeps chugging along even when we get stuff thrown at us, and there's a lot of stuff getting thrown at us.
yeah, we're going to discuss it
So we're-
actually today. So, for
yeah.
the sake of the
So
people that actually came in, let's just start, shall we?
sure, absolutely.
Okay.
So go for it.
Okay. So, hi everybody. My name is Mirit Hoffman. I am a gerontologist and an elder law lawyer, and my main focus is estate planning and elder law, which means preparing wills and enduring power of attorneys, guardianship issues, and prenups or financial agreements for second or third relationships, and advise also on estate planning for people with dual citizenships, mainly Israel and the US. And I also host discussions called Golden Topics, Significant Crossroads for Seniors. Rachel, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay. So my name is Rachel Weinstein. I'm a LCSW, a licensed clinical social worker, both in Israel and in Illinois in the United States. And I work with folks dealing with all types of issues. I work with the elderly, people who are who are caregivers for the elderly and otherwise. I also work with my brain just stopped with people who are dealing with death and dying and grief and transitions. And a topic that is also near and dear to my heart is supporting families of children who have come out as LGBTQ, as well as those individuals, particularly in the Jewish community, that can be an extra challenge. So yeah, so that's what we do.
Well, and we both have a podcast called Caring for an Aging Parent. And today's topic, which is number 7, by the way, kudos to
Woo-hoo. Lucky number 7. There you go.
yes. Today we're going to be talking about a loaded question called caregiving during wartime. Um, I know for people who know, well, the ongoing routine state of emergency here in Israel is we've been in war for nearly a year and a half now, which causes a lot of challenges and stress for everybody. And what we're going to talk about is how do we carry out our responsibilities for other people that we're taking care of while still looking after our own mental care, our own welfare, our own health, and our own security. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, Rachel, why don't you
Oh,
start?
great. Okay. So I am working off of, I should say, I found an article. It was written in 2024, I believe. So the war had already begun. Family caregivers of older adults and people with disabilities during the initial months of the Israeli-Hamas war. It was written by Israeli researchers. So this is just to put into a little bit of perspective of how many people we're talking about in terms of caregivers. This is a number from 2019, so the number is not going to be 100% accurate, but approximately 1.2 million people
Wow.
are reported to be family caregivers. That's 6 years ago. I can't do the math, right? That's from 2019. So it's is it more, is it less, but just think about, even if that was the exact number right now, that's 1.2 million people who are caring for someone else in their family, which means that's 1.2 million people who are stressed, who are tired, who are overworked, literally probably very underpaid, and whether they're caregiving out of love or because necessity, they just have to do it. That's a lot of people who need a lot of support. Now throw in, unfortunately, this war, and there's even more stuff to deal with. And I apologize for paper shuffling here. Um, there's so many pieces to all of this, and one thing I want to say, because I see this sometimes with children as well as with adults and with seniors. Um, the phrase, and I don't mean in any possible way to make light, because there's nothing to make light of. War is hell. And it is there's not a single human being in this country that isn't somehow affected. There's no way. And in fact, actually, one of the things that many therapists have discussed is that usually when a client comes to you for whatever issue, they bring their issue, you work with them, they leave, and you go on to do whatever else is going on. This is affecting clients and therapists all the same, absolutely all the same. So the stressor it never leaves. So even when your client leaves, and maybe they may not even be talking about the war, but if they happen to mention something about there was a protest here, or I know that person, or oh my gosh, my neighbor's third cousin was killed, we have the same stories. So the stress is far too great and spread throughout. So just that is, excuse me, just kind of a related side note. One of the things I think, and this is what I was saying before, starting to say before, is that um, if an elder, doesn't matter whatever their medical condition is, wants to know because they don't know what, they can't access the internet, their television won't work, whatever it is, or they just didn't get the right station, or they missed the report, whatever it is. If somebody wants to know what is going on, we need to treat adults like adults. We need to not, don't, there's no way to make this nice. I'm not saying that you have to say, well, this person died this way, and this is the report of every detail of every tunnel. We don't need that. Caregivers don't need that either. But don't lie, don't lie by omission. If your 95-year-old mom wants to know what's happening there, and you know that she's cognitively able to understand, again, I wouldn't go into graphics for anybody, but don't say like bad things happened in Gaza today. Like that's not fair, that's not intellectually honest. It's not fair. So if somebody wants to know, you can ask them. And again, I think this is the rule really for everybody. How much do you want to know? Do you want, I know of details because it's been in the news. Do you want to know all of them? Do you want to know what I know? Or do you want to know this happened, basic, bullet points? Be intellectually honest. Um, Old people are not stupid people. Don't treat them as
100%.
such. And
100%.
somebody who is ill, if there's a cognitive disability, if somebody has dementia, yeah, then you may need to say, some stuff is happening, or however you might describe it. But be honest to them, and honest to yourself. um Something else that I think is, and I'm going to kind of I tend to sort of jump between points here, is just in terms of getting people prepared for what may or may not happen, right? We don't know what's going to be, but given, I can call them unknowns, maybe they're not so unknowns, is that if you are taking care of a relative who is compromised in any way, can't just pop out of a chair and get to a safe room, make sure that you, and again, I'm using this article as a basis, make sure that you know the path to get there, and that they can get there safely depending on wherever you are in the country, so that if you have 90 seconds. Look, 90 seconds for, let's say, central Israel may sound like all day in comparison to areas closer to Gaza, which have maybe 15 seconds, but it's not such a long time. So if somebody walks with a shuffle, if somebody's in a wheelchair, if somebody's in a walker, make sure that you've seen that in practice, them getting into that room, so that it's not, and obviously we never know when it's going to happen, but make sure that there's some familiarity. You build a little bit of muscle memory, so that if that sound, God forbid, goes off, then I know I need to get into that room as fast as humanly possible. I can say at the very beginning of the war, I had just had hip surgery, and sort of the haha joke was, how was I even able to get into the room? Now, my safe room is right by my bedroom, but it was scary. There's noise outside, and I'm just learning how to walk. So I'm very fortunate we had 90 seconds. But let me tell you, I didn't leave that room for many hours that on October 7th, because it hurt to get up and down. I was like fresh out of surgery. So I am very acquainted with this, being familiar with the roots, and all of that. Um, and with that, of course, making sure that your safe room has whatever it needs, whether it's for the people you're caring for, or
Right.
yourself, or whatever. Um, in terms of the stress of being a caregiver, I think most of us know sort of, the golden rules of you have to take care of yourself, but a lot of us Oh, yeah, well, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I have a friend in a different phase of his life. He's like, I know I got to take care of, A, B, and C for myself, but this one needs me and that one needs me and the other one needs me. I just don't have time. And um, what he's saying is, and I say this with love, he doesn't have time for himself because it still somehow seems selfish. So it's really vital, critical to understand that if you're taking care of someone and it's already kind of wild out there in our country, in the world, if you don't take care of yourself, your body will make sure that you do. If you are consuming a ton of news, which is very easy to do, you are dealing with your own stresses. If you're part of the sandwich generation, right? You're taking care of your kids while taking care of your parents. You're already stressed. You're dealing with, dad's, doctor while your kid needs some form signed to go on some trip somewhere. And your boss needs you. And shoot, you forgot to get that thing at the grocery store. And it's a really good recipe for falling apart. And I mean, really, you know, just overwhelmed and under the weather and not able to do anything. So, taking care of yourself, yes, exercise is wonderful, eating well is wonderful. Yes, yes, yes. It also means trying to get some sleep. It also means sharing the duties. Being a caregiver is already difficult. It's so difficult. Being a caregiver while wondering, God forbid, is someone going to attack? Or what's happening with our hostages, or oh my gosh, was that an airplane? Because we don't get a lot of commercial traffic in lots of, Israel. So having all of that on you is a recipe for disaster if you don't take care of yourself. So if you're holding on, I'm going to tie 2 points together here. If you're holding on to, I can't tell mom what's happening because she'll get stressed and you're working on an ulcer, again, if mom is cognitively able to absorb the information, tell me what's going on, and she can take that in and understand it, share that with her. Just because you're elderly, just because you're infirm, does not mean you've lost your intellect. So, um, making sure that you're taking care of yourself is even, I think, even more critical. I would love for everyone to be able to go to the spa. That's so not realistic for most of us. But you do have to move your body. You do have to stay hydrated. Again, I will tell you I know intimately from whence I speak on that one. I was my mom's caregiver, not during a war. She was in the hospital, and I was running between the nurse's station and her, and this one and that one, and talking. And her room started to move, which was funny because nobody else seemed to find that it was moving. And it was moving because I forgot to drink. I forgot to hydrate. And I also forgot to eat, which was kind of funny in and of itself. But the point is that I was not taking care of myself because I had to keep running. And my niece, God bless her, had a cheese stick and waved it in my face and wouldn't let me move until I ate it, and then made sure I was hydrated. And what ended up happening was I didn't waste time not taking care of my mom. The 10 minutes I took for myself, all of a sudden what the doctors were saying was like, oh, that's words you're saying. I'm not just imagine. They didn't just sound like a bunch of sounds, and the room stopped spinning. I was that dehydrated. And you don't need to be in the other hospital bed. This is not a cute little roommate situation thing. You don't need to do that. Um, the other thing that's so important is community. You're not the only caregiver. There are so many caregivers. And if you are connected, if your elder is connected to any sort of community center or even with the doctor, see what resources, speak to the social worker that's affiliated with either in your kupa, in your clinic, talk to someone, get help. You can't do this. You shouldn't do this alone. You don't need to go from taking care of your loved one, falling apart, and then who's taking care of you? The kids you were taking care of before? We all got to pitch in and take care of ourselves. We're all taking care of everybody else. We have to take care of ourselves. So just some of the
Very
points.
important stuff. Well, I have a few things. Um,
Yep.
in particularly, I think Alzheimer's, people with some form of dementia, having the television on 24/7 because you want to know about it is not necessarily good for that person because they are
It's not good
reliving.
for you either.
It's
It's not
not
good
good
for
for
you
you,
either.
that's a given. It's definitely not good for that person because he doesn't understand and he's reliving the same thing over and over. It could be reruns, but for him, it's not reruns because he didn't remember what happened before. And for him, it's like again and again and again the same thing, which can put somebody into anxiety like on steroids. And
Right. The other thing, sorry, to just interrupt. The other thing too is that even with a person who has dementia, if there's some trauma, like let's say they're, you could say a Holocaust survivor. Let's say they've had some other trauma. Let's say they've lived, this is not their first war,
right,
not their first
right,
rodeo in this country, right? it, being exposed to violence, being exposed to war, being exposed to all of the stuff that we all know is going on, it's not healthy, especially in a brain that can barely process or isn't processing well all the other stuff in their own life. Did you eat the crackers and cheese? Now you're putting, war on. The other thing is that sometimes people will say, well, they don't even know what they're watching. Again, be intellectually honest. Just because someone can't remember doesn't mean that they need to be exposed to that because our brains take it all in. And
100%.
it's be really mindful of that for yourself and for whoever it is you're taking care of.
100%. I totally agree with you. And other two things that came to mind is, they have that when you're on a plane, there's always that showing you what happens if, God forbid, something happens on the plane, what you need to do. And there's always that thing with the
Your
man,
oxygen on first.
first yours, and then your children. So it's the same thing here with the caregiver, even more so. Um,
Right,
super important. So
right.
I totally understand what you were saying. The other thing that I wanted to say regarding caregiving is when you mentioned the number 1.9, what went on my head is it's about one out of every nine people here in this country. Because if we're like over a little bit more than 9 million, I think
Right, right. 1.2 million right in 2019. Either way, it's
it's like one out of
everyone
every
you
nine,
know
which
has a
means
caregiver.
exactly, which means that you can be in the street and people can go through, war brings out the worst in people, brings out the best in people, but it
Huston,
definitely
right.
brings out a lot of anxiety in people. And
Hmm.
you could be, you can be on the road and somebody just, I don't know, went on a green light or somebody pushed in front of you or things happen. You're in the supermarket and you never know what's going on in the head of the person ahead of you. Maybe everybody should give each other a little bit of slack. You don't know if the person in front of you is a caregiver or the person behind you is a caregiver. You don't know if the person in front of you had a loved one that just, was lost in the war or is a mother of a soldier in this war. You don't know what's going on. Everybody has some sort of connection to this war. It's a very small country. We are all living it. Be
Very
nice
much in
to
real
each
time.
other.
Right,
Be nice to each other.
right,
Give each other some
right.
slack.
Right. And I think also, I mean, that's I think a good rule in general because everyone is on some sort of um, everyone's anxiety is a bit increased, even people who don't generally have anxiety, right? It's look, it's scary to live in the middle of a war, and we are an opinionated people on a good day. So there's even more opinions now. And we have to be mindful. Again, we have to be certainly just like be nice to other people is always a good way to go. But also we're on heightened alert, and that's unfortunately that's not because everyone's paranoid. It's of necessity. We need to be alert. That's just the way it is in the world, not only in Israel. And so being aware of your surroundings and then also somehow balancing not being overly aggressive and balancing like I want to make sure that I'm not overdoing it with other people. It's a lot to hold on to. So again, when you take care of yourself, when you are as rested as humanly possible, when you are hydrated, when you have if you can't grab anything to eat, make sure you're putting as my mom used to call it, brain food, right? Grab a piece of cheese or grab something that isn't going to bring your blood sugar up and then have it come crashing down. Taking care of yourself sets you up for better behavior. I don't know about you, but if I haven't eaten good stuff and I'm tired, I'm probably not my nicest, and I'm probably going to be more short-tempered and I may have to apologize 10 times because, oh, I should not have done that or said that or thought that or whatever. So we're all human. But we when you take care of yourself, you're taking care, you really are, and it may sound cliche, but you're also taking care of your community. The other thing is in terms of, you have to put on your oxygen mask first. I'm going to be a little bit blunt here and say that dead people can't take care of caregivers. They can't be caregivers. Sick people, dying people, hurting people. Now, someone may say, no, 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 people who are sick can be caregivers. Not where I'm going here. If you don't take care of yourself and you become the invalid, if you don't take care of yourself and you are so sick that you cannot function, who's going to take care of you too? You
Um,
have to be practical. Practical isn't selfish. Practical is, well, it's practical. You have to be realistic. And you can only do the best that you can do. That's it. You can't do more than that. Um, I just, one other thing that just came to mind too, in terms of how you communicate with family members during a war. Um, People have different opinions about who's right, who's wrong, what should be, what shouldn't be, on and on and on. If your mom or dad or whoever you're taking care of has a political view, unfortunately, it's where politics comes into our lives, is it's a very real thing. If mom always thought that this group was always bad, whoever that is, and you are like, no, they're always good, you know, pick and choose your battles. We have enough battles going on. If you're going to have to help mom with something intimate, going to the bathroom, do you really want to do that after the two of you just fought over who's right and who's wrong? Do you really want to do that? Do you really want to set yourself up? And also, I can't imagine mom may have some really strong opinions that you're not loving, but you're about to change her diaper, you're about to take her to the bathroom, whatever it is, that vulnerability, that power dynamic gets really, really emphasized. Really, if you want to have discussions about who's right and who's wrong, really time them in a way to the best of your ability that it's not going to put either of you at risk. Her for not getting what it is that she actually like physically needs, and you for not there's no benefit to losing it. You may, and that's okay too, but don't set yourself up for it. Just don't set yourself up for that. Again, we are a people with 1,000 opinions. There's 100 different phrases about how opinionated we are, and that's fine. And that's our one of our best features and one of our downfalls. Um, you have to think, right? When you're supporting, let's say your parents, the good and the not so good come up. They're gonna come up, and it's emotional, and you're tired, and maybe you pulled your back, and why didn't the paid caregiver come, and all this stuff, and oh my God, this one's threatening they're gonna throw a bomb, and this one just blew up a bus, and oh my God, stop. You can only control what you can control. You cannot control outside. You cannot control when mom may need to go to the bathroom. You can control you, and it's on each of us to do that. And again, being not only respectful of the person you're taking care of, being respectful of yourself. If you're not, it's a losing. You're gonna lose. You're gonna lose. And I know it's not win lose, but you will lose yourself. And everybody suffers when that happens. It's hard enough to live in a war zone, in a war. We don't need to bring it in to the house. That's
100%.
you know.
That's actually a very good point. And the other thing I wanted to say when you were saying, you're not alone, I think
Mhm,
there are a lot more groups than you are aware of. I mean, there's Facebook groups and there's WhatsApp groups and there's Zoom and there's, in your local community, whatever groups. There's a lot of groups of people that are taking care of other people, whether it's family or not family, that you
mhm,
could that you could just join as a support group and they will understand what you're going through because they're going through the same thing and it helps.
mhm.
It
And if
helps.
you don't know what those groups are, ask. Ask if you don't know. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to be your resident social worker. If you don't know, ask. You have to. you have to ask, you have to put yourself out there. And I know, great. It's like one more thing. I'm already taking care of mom. I got to take care of my kids. I got to take care of this. And I have to find support groups. They're not going to come to you. And that's just the reality of it. Also, you have a better sense of what it is you need, even if you can't fully, pinpoint what it is. I can say, oh, there's this wonderful group for the wives of soldiers who are taking care of moms. You may not like that group. It may not meet at a time that works for you. But I can't say this is your group. You have to try it out and make sure it works for you. Um, and groups can be formal. Again, ask your doctor, ask your whoever you're caregiving for, excuse me, ask their doctor. Ask and don't stop asking. Don't who can I talk to? You need individual therapy, you need to talk to other people, whatever you need to do. The other thing too is that sometimes the best support groups are people who are in it, who are in a whole different set of trenches than you are, than excuse me, than our soldiers are. So, other, the woman in your building who's also taking her dad out to his appointment. How are you? How you doing? This is really hard, huh? Or just tell me how you are. Let's we when we're kids we make friends by saying, "Oh, are you done with the blue crayon? Can I have it next?" Good, you're my best friend. We can't do that as adults. But we can reach out, and that's really important. There's actually one other point I wanted to mention too, that it is not uncommon for our chayalim, our soldiers, to walk around and have rifles on them. That's pretty normal around here. And so if that is, I'm not saying that every single person that needs a caregiver is going to get startled by that, but being a mindful of, obviously there's all sorts of regulations about when somebody comes home and they have a weapon, they're supposed to, I think, disassemble it and put it in
Yeah,
a
they're supposed
lock,
to disassemble
something.
and then lock it up in two locks. Yeah, there's this whole thing.
Right. There's a whole thing. And you can't rely on, oh, grandma knows not to touch that. Please don't rely on that. There are rules for a reason. Be safe, be smart. The other thing too is that, again, if grandma, mom, whoever is cognitively just not nearly as sharp, they have dementia, they have whatever, if the sight of that is makes them nervous, it may make them feel super safe, it may make them feel really proud, whatever it is. But again, there are certain visuals that when somebody's memory is gone, they go into places that we may not understand. So again, I'm not saying don't go visit grandma if you just came back from service and you have your weapon on you. Don't do that. But get a sense. If grandma's like, yeah, she can handle me, and she really can, go for it. Don't make problems where there aren't any. Um, but but if that is an issue, look, in the States, if you saw a bunch of people walking around with rifles, you'd probably say, it's been nice knowing you, and here I come, God, right? That's not the same as it is here. And those of us who are from the States, yeah, sometimes, first few times rather, I saw, young men with guns. It was like, oh God. That now it's like, oh goody, the good guys are here. But the point being that, if grandma's that, little old American lady, might freak her out a little bit. So be mindful of that. Be mindful of
Good
that.
point.
And
That's a very good point.
yeah,
Okay, well, these are all very good points. Anything else before we end this conversation?
I think we need to take care of ourselves. I mean, it's really, I mean, I was gonna say it's that simple. Of course, it's not simple. Um, Water, stay hydrated, eat as well as you can, sleep as well as you can. Don't consume more news than you should. I will let each person decide what that is, because I think we're all consuming more, myself very much included, than we should. Um, and it's also okay. It's okay to enjoy your mom, your dad, whoever you're taking care of, even in a war. It's okay. It's good, because life really does continue. It's okay to enjoy that time. You can be sad or angry or whatever you're feeling, and enjoy who you're working with, who you're with. It's not, you're not being a bad citizen. You're being a human being, and we should be living our lives as well.
I actually like that ending. That's a good ending. Be kind to yourself, I think is basically also be kind to yourself. Enjoy the moment that you have with your parents. Actually, you know what? Enjoy the moments that you have with if you're taking care of your parents with your parent
Mhm.
because life is precious. As we know, war is actually in our face to tell us that. So
Right.
it's like
Absolutely.
a good lesson to take from that.
Yes.
Well, Rachel, this was a very interesting discussion as all.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Yes.
And if anybody has any questions for Rachel, how can they get to you? Can you just tell us your number?
Sure. You can reach me at 052-874-5589. And my email, which is R Weinstein, spelled like Weinstein, RWEINSTEINMSW @gmail.com.
Perfect. Okay, well, I hope this was informative for you as well and interesting. I hope you got a lot out of it. Um, in the meantime, have a good night, stay safe,
Yes.
and don't forget to share this with anyone that you think would benefit from it. And we're looking forward to seeing you all in our next talk. Bye bye now.
Yep. Bye bye.